Welcome to the Explainer. I'm so pumped to kick off today's masterclass. Look, coding has always felt like this massive, intimidating wall, right? But today, we're completely flipping the script. We're going to take coding and turn it into a dead, simple communication exercise using Claude. If you've ever felt like automating your work was completely out of reach, well, get ready. Think of me as your personal expert consultant today. I'm going to give you the exact playbook to communicate what you need to Claude so you can automate your busy work without ever writing a single line of code yourself. Let's get into it.
You know, for basically all of business history, there's been this massive, impenetrable wall. On one side, you had developers and programmers, the folks who could actually automate things. On the other side, the rest of us, just stuck doing everything manually. You either had to spend months learning to code yourself, or literally wait in line hoping a developer had some spare time for you. But here is the massive psychological reframe you need to grasp today. Coding is no longer a technical skill. That historic wall keeping you from automating your life, it has completely crumbled. So, the crucial point is, coding is now just a communication skill. That's it. Today, automating your work simply requires you to describe what you need in plain, everyday English. It's really just a simple loop. You describe what you want, Claude writes the actual code, you test it out, and hey, if it breaks, Claude fixes it. That loop is now 100% accessible to you, absolutely no technical background required. Here is our quick playbook for today's explainer. First, the wall comes down. Second, your automation reality check. Third, the 3 power phrases. Fourth, taking it to the next level with Claude Code. And finally, running your first automation session. All right, let's jump right into section 1. The wall comes down, breaking that technical barrier. The practical impact of this barrier coming down is honestly staggering. 80%. That right there is the amount of production quality code Claude can just write for you to handle the repetitive manual stuff you do every single week. You don't need to wait around for a software engineer to organize your files or process your data anymore. Just think about all those hours you sink into recurring busy work. Well, the vast majority of that can literally be handled in seconds now. Okay, let's dive into this next part. Section 2 is your automation reality check. What Claude can actually do. Now, putting my consultant hat on for a second, I want to give you a very grounded reality check on the actual boundaries of Claude's capabilities, just so you're deploying this correctly. There are 4 core categories where Claude absolutely crushes it. First up, data processing. Think combining a bunch of messy Excel files, stripping out duplicates, or creating new calculated columns. Easy. Second is file and folder management. Imagine having to rename hundreds of files to match a specific format or sorting them all by date. Claude handles that in a blink. Third, we've got report generation, pulling those weekly performance snapshots from your live data sources. And fourth, system integration, basically moving your data between different apps that stubbornly refuse to natively connect to each other. These are all absolute game changers for saving time. But hey, we do have to be completely honest about where the boundary lies here. Claude is not going to build you some hyper-complex software architecture or a lockdown, highly secure production-grade enterprise system. No way. You absolutely still need a skilled human developer for that kind of deep systems architecture. But for those 4 categories we just talked about, the stuff that makes up like 90% of our daily practical business needs, Claude has got you totally covered.
Moving right along to section 3, the 3 power phrases. This is your communication playbook. Listen up, because this is the absolute core of today's explainer. I am going to hand you 3 specific scripts that cover the entire life cycle of writing, fixing, and understanding code. And remember, no technical background needed. Okay, here is power phrase number 22. Write Python code that. Now, you might be wondering, why Python? Good question. Well, Python is basically the perfect language for this because it reads a lot like plain English. Plus, it has these massive pre-built libraries designed specifically for wrangling data and files. And the best part? It runs on pretty much any operating system without making you jump through complex setup hoops. It's hands down the best choice for business automation. And this brilliantly illustrates the real difference between wild success and a total headache. It all comes down to specificity. A weak prompt is super vague. Something like, hey, write Python code to process my Excel files. Doing that just gets you generic code that won't match your actual files, and you'll end up spending an hour trying to fix it. But a strong prompt describes the task at the logic level. You want to explicitly detail the exact input folder, spell out the step-by-step logic you want to apply, define the precise output format you need, and even mention your operating system, like I'm on Windows 11. That level of detail is exactly what gets you code you can literally deploy immediately. All right, now we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the beginner's biggest source of anxiety.
What on earth happens when the code breaks? Because look, most non-technical folks see a red error message and immediately think, oh no, I failed, dead end. We need to completely reframe that right now. Errors are a completely normal, expected part of software development. Think of an error message not as a failure, but as a highly precise 30-second diagnostic signal. It's just the computer telling Claude exactly what needs to be fixed.
And that is exactly where Power Phrase 23 comes to the rescue. When you see one of those errors, don't panic. You literally just copy the error text and paste it directly into this exact prompt. By asking Claude to fix the error, explain what caused it in plain simple English, and double-check for any similar problems lurking in the code, you magically turn a terrifying screen of red text into a perfectly working script in under 5 minutes. It creates this really simple rhythm. Run, break, paste, and fix. Just run, break, paste, and fix. That's it.
Finally, to close out this whole life cycle, we've got Power Phrase 24. Think of this as your personal accountability practice. By asking Claude to explain the code to you, line by line, in plain English, you make absolutely sure you understand what the computer is actually doing. We don't want you just running code blindly, right? Plus, when your requirements inevitably change down the road, like maybe you just need to update a specific column name, you'll know exactly where to go in the script to make that quick edit yourself.
Okay, Section 4, Next Level, Claude Code and Persistent Automation.
Now, those power phrases we just covered, they work beautifully in your standard Claude chat interface. But if you're a professional looking to kick things up a notch and build out a personal automation library without all the manual copy-pasting, there's a more advanced tool you should know about. It's called Claude Code, and it operates directly inside your working environment, meaning it has persistent access to read and write your files. But here's the catch. Because it can actually execute code and directly modify your file system, you absolutely must be careful. Claude Code will always stop, explain its plan, and ask for your confirmation before it does anything consequential. And as your consultant, I'm giving you some tough love here. You must treat those confirmation prompts as genuine, serious reviews. Please, whatever you do, do not just blindly click yes to everything.
Section 5, Your First Automation Session. Let's move to and see how this builds from a manual task into a running script.
Let's string all of these concepts together into a highly relatable office scenario, so you can see exactly how this communication playbook works out in the real world. I want you to imagine this absolutely grueling manual process. Picture this. Every single Monday morning, 8 a.m., you download a huge batch of supplier invoices. At 8:30, you're squinting at your screen, checking for duplicates. 9 o'clock rolls around, and you're manually flagging the overdue ones. Then, finally, at 9:30, you type up and email a summary. That is 90 minutes completely wasted every Monday, probably before your coffee's even cold. If you add that up over a year, that's nearly 2 full work weeks dedicated to a chore that a Python script could literally finish in 30 seconds.
So here is exactly how we're going to conquer this task using our 4 steps to completely obliterate this problem. Step 1 is write. We fire off phrase 22 to ask Claude for our Python script. Step 2 is run and fix. We test the script out and, oh look, we hit an error because one stubborn supplier used invoice NO instead of invoice number. No problem. We just drop in phrase 23 to get Claude to fix it instantly. Step 3 is understand. We use phrase 24 so Claude can explain the logic to us, ensuring we actually know how it works. And finally, step 4, schedule. We just ask Claude, hey, how do I use Windows Task Scheduler to make this run completely on its own every Monday morning? Boom, done. The whole shebang is automated. Now, if you're sitting there right now, scratching your head wondering, okay, where do I even begin? I've got a little bonus for you. It's called the Universal Automation Discovery Prompt. Basically, this is a specialized prompt where you tell Claude to act as your own personal productivity consultant. You just type out a detailed description of what your typical work week looks like, and Claude will actually analyze your routine for you. It'll point out the top 3 repetitive tasks that are just begging to be automated. It is incredibly helpful to get you started. And that brings us right to your Day 8 challenge. My challenge to you is to automate just one real task today. Pick one thing you currently do manually, over and over every single week. Pull up those power phrases, communicate your needs to Claude like the expert consultant you now are, and build your very first script. You can totally do this. I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative question. Are you ready to just sit back and watch a computer do in 30 seconds what used to take you 90 grueling minutes? I'm telling you, the very first time that script runs successfully, your entire relationship with technology is going to change forever. It's a real game changer. So go out there, complete the challenge, experience that shift for yourself, and we will see you back here for Day 9.